Hi, my name is Sohi Burgess, and this is my past, present, and future presentation. I work from home as a freelance English to Korean translator and mainly deal with text projects for state governments and organizations. I'm not currently teaching, but I'm interested in developing a Korean language and culture curriculum that can be implemented in an online environment. The key trends in learning Korean or taking online tutoring or courses, also many students self-studied using mobile apps such as Duolingo, Lingodeer, and Memrise, listening to the podcast that Talk to Me in Korean provided, and using other online resources such as YouTube videos, PDF files, and etc. Although I do not have experience in teaching Korean to groups of people in institutions, I tutored three students online for several months about 2 years ago. One of them was a physician assistant in neurology, and the other two were high school and undergraduate students who were a fan of BTS, a Korean boy band. While tutoring the students, I realized that the demand for Korean language learning rapidly increased as Korean pop culture spread all around the world. However, the amount and quality of resources and classes available to people fell short of demand, and most of them were lecture-like resources. When I tutored the students online, I did not have much knowledge or skills in using technology. Also, it was hard to create the lessons that could support the development of a collaboration because it was one-on-one tutoring. I developed and implemented personalized learning that I customized each student's learning path. The one-on-one lesson was conducted through Skype video chat. At the very first meeting, I tested and asked questions to check their interest, needs, goals, strengths, language proficiency, and background knowledge. After the meeting, I emailed the students the Word document that I created their learning plans with long-term and weekly goals and vocabulary list based on their answers at the first meeting. The plans were flexibly adjusted based on their learning paces. While having the synchronous session, I promoted communication, critical thinking, and creativity by verbally interacting with the students and providing opportunities to apply their prior knowledge to create new phrases and sentences. Students could review the lesson through the recorded session. Homework was provided as well. Students needed to answer the questions and record their voices using their preferred devices, such as their phones. I provided a PDF file for feedback with a written description, and I reviewed the parts needed at the next synchronous session. Once I enrolled and started taking classes in this program, I stopped tutoring students to focus on school and my translating job. However, I occasionally teach my husband the Korean language and culture. He is American and he is a beginner in learning the Korean language. I have to be more flexible with him because both of us are students and he works full time. I supported the development of critical thinking by being a facilitator rather than a lecturer for my husband. I guided him to be more self-directed in learning the Korean language and culture and control over his learning path, pace, time, and location. I'm his learning partner and resource provider. He started off by learning the Korean alphabet and how to make Korean syllables by using PDF files that the website called How to Study Korean provided. He self-studied what I provided and I corrected his pronunciation. I also ordered Korean keyboard stickers so that he could type Korean and be able to search the words using his laptop and smartphones. He chose to use mobile apps or play PC games for learning Korean rather than studying books or watching lectures. He expanded his vocabulary skills using Memrise, Lingodeer, and Influent. To develop his communication skills in Korean, I suggested him using KakaoTalk, which is a Korean messaging app for smartphones. Because most Korean people use this app to communicate, he was able to talk to my family in Korea and me by typing Korean and using emoticons and sending pictures and videos. Because he loves watching movies and listening to music, we often watch Korean movies, dramas, documentaries, and YouTube channels. When we travel, we listen to K-pops. I support him as a learning partner by adding detailed explanations and asking and answering questions. We also collaboratively create Korean learning resources for him to learn in a fun way and share with other people. We created the content with PPT slides for visuals and recorded our voice using a screen recording program. Once we finished the recording, we used a video editing program and shared the video with families, friends, and sometimes the public on our YouTube channel. The reliable and accessible online resources in Korean language education are pretty limited because Korean language learning recently got popular with the rise of Korean pop culture and YouTube. There are ways people can find Korean language learning community in which they can communicate with native speakers or Korean language learners through social media such as Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube, or language learning based mobile apps such as Hi Native. However, it is hard to find technology-based learning resources that promote critical thinking, creativity, and collaboration. The online learning resources are mostly teacher-centered lectures focused on developing vocabulary and grammar skills. Also, many learners tend to rely on unreliable resources, such as popular YouTube channels that anyone can create and produce the content. Although there are challenges in finding reliable resources, Korean language education is improving more and more over time. Korean government created a standard curriculum for Korean language to improve the quality of Korean language education and solve the challenges caused by the diversity in the learning environment and learners. Although this curriculum focuses on fostering communication skills, it does not include any technology-based solutions. At this point, I can analyze the gaps between the curriculum and 21st century skills with the technology-based solutions to create a new curriculum for Korean language learning. The number of students studying abroad in South Korea was increasing, and they attended language schools at the universities. However, the number of new students is decreasing now because of COVID-19. At this point, there is a movement to extend the Korean language program overseas by connecting institutions between Korea and other countries. For example, Visang Education, which is a Korean book publishing company, developed the online education platform called Master K. The first trial class was conducted in Mongol by allowing 14 students to access Master K and take Korean language courses that Hannam University provides. In 1 to 2 years, I believe students will have more opportunities to access the online platforms, including Master K, so they will be able to have a better quality of distance learning opportunities that higher education institutions provide. In 3 to 5 years, I believe the supply of Korean education content will continue increasing. Individuals, companies, and educational institutions will produce and share Korean educational content through online platforms. Therefore, students will have a wider choice and will be able to receive affordable and better quality Korean language education. Moreover, instructional designers will consider applying a wider variety of pedagogical approaches that can be implemented with technology rather than producing lecture content. Although there is the technology that enhances communication, I believe the learners will create a larger community. They can share the resources and communicate with each other. Therefore, not only the organizations will have a partnership to create a better educational system, but also the learners will collaboratively create their own content to share with other people. With the larger community, learners will be able to analyze, evaluate, and reform ideas in their learning. The ultimate goal of language learning is to communicate with people using that language. Many people who learn a different language want to visit the country where they can speak to the native speakers. Because of many reasons, such as time, money, or even COVID-19, there are many people who remain that dream as a dream. I believe in 10 years, technology will help people to explore different countries virtually and communicate with native speakers. For example, just like Alexa, there will be a virtual assistant AI technology that can freely speak different languages without changing language settings. The speaker says in English and the AI speaks back to Korean, or the speaker says in English with a few Korean words and AI can understand what the speaker says and talk back to the speaker. Another example is a virtual reality program. Uh, People will be able to virtually visit places in Korea and hang out with other users. Thank you so much for watching my presentation, and I look forward to having your feedback and watching your presentations as well. Bye!